So this is episode 2 of a series where I play end-only survival, but with the gimmick that the Wandering Trader can also spawn in the end. If you haven't watched the first video, I'd highly recommend doing that first. And since you're here, I'm gonna assume that you watched the first episode, but just in case, or if you want a refresher, here's a really quick recap. Okay, so what about a slightly slower recap? So, in the first episode, we spawned out in the Outer End Islands, and the challenge began from there. We started by gathering chorus fruit, then ender pearls, and then we used those to find and then loot our first end city. After looting the first one, we did get a good pickaxe and decent armor, which we used to help us loot a few more end cities. Then we headed back to the Outer End Island spawn point, built a bridge back to the main end island at 00, lost some gear, and then shortly after that, we encountered our first wandering trader. So we traded some emeralds for brown mushrooms and a jungle sapling, and then stole his llamas, and then built a small tower for our main base. After doing that, and then looting a few more end cities, we encountered a second wandering trader, and this one sold us some pumpkin seeds, 3 podzol, and a mangrove sapling. And with that 3 dirt, we were able to grow our very first tree. After that, we did lose our very first tree type to RNG, which was the jungle sapling, unfortunately. But we still had mangrove trees to grow, so we started growing those instead, and then set up a chorus root farm, and at the very end of the video, we did encounter another wandering trader who sold us kelp and cactus, though we couldn't use them at the time. And that basically wraps up the first video. There were a few more things to happen, but that should be enough of a recap for now. As a reminder, here's our rules, pause if you need to read them. And for last episode, our goal was to set up a very basic base, which we kind of did. There are a few things that we missed, such as an EXP farm or a proper food supply, so that's what we're going to be focusing on for today. Although saying that, the food thing is sort of dependent on the wandering trader, so we're just going to say that our second goal for now is just to try and get a good pickaxe as a quality of life sort of thing. There's also going to be some smaller goals that I planned out ahead of time, but to keep the video interesting, I'm not going to reveal them just yet. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's get things started in here. Oh, and also, again, this is my second ever full-length video, so if you can tell me anything I need to improve upon, then you'll get, I don't know, +5 good guy points. So in the background, I'd had some footage running of me just mining some mangrove trees to get some extra wood. But from here on, for some reason, the very first thing that I felt the need to do this episode was to make a barn for the llamas we had gotten last episode. So I had started the build by just laying out like a basic map of what I wanted the building to look like. And I would have liked to put grass in the llama pen areas, but since I didn't have that, I just used some moss carpets that I had gotten from the mangrove trees. And with the design, I decided that I was going to have one large pen on one side, and then have the other half be a smaller pen, and like some storage areas and stuff. And I'm not entirely sure why, but I decided that for the windows, I was just going to use some half slabs just to make them have gaps in them. I did have glass at this point, but for some reason, just didn't want to use it. Also in the background, there is the Wandering Trader. That's not a new one, he was there from last episode and he just still wanted to be here, I guess, so he's there. For now, I was just setting up like the basic ground floor layout and then adding in the windows. There's just a little bit of that footage, so I'm just going to cut out part of it just because I don't want stuff to get boring. After getting the windows and stuff installed, I decided just to go with the basic roof. I probably should have gone with purple just to try and stick with the style, but I decided just to leave it plain for now. And then I had ran back over to grab the llamas from the little pen I had made last episode, and apparently there is a feature where if you lead one llama, the rest will just sort of follow it for some reason, so just making use of that real quick. And because I didn't want the building to look completely barren, I added just some barrels and also a composter to sort of look like a food bin, though I'm not really sure if it accomplished that. What it did accomplish, though, was causing all the llamas to have a panic attack and immediately try and escape, which was a little bit of a pain to deal with. And of course I added a crafting table because every good building needs a crafting table somewhere. After I finished with the barn, I started getting a little bit more wood for what I was going to do in just a minute, which was going to be raiding some more in-cities. And the two reasons I needed wood, one of them was for shulker boxes because, yeah, and the second one was so I could use the wood just to mark like pathways, but you'll see that in just a minute. Yeah, my methodology for making the pathways is that I'd make an L shape with the planks since they stand out, and the base of the L would always face back towards base, so that way I could just always follow them one direction back to base, easy peasy. It does take me a little bit to find stuff, so I'm just going to put the timestamp to skip to if you want, but it does look a little bit cool, so I am going to leave this footage in there. Just as a side note that I'd sort of put in my notes app while I was making this video, I'd sort of noticed that when you're looking for in-cities, you can go like for 3 hours and then not find any, and then you'll find like 4 or 5 back to back. And I'm not sure what's with that, if it's like spawn conditions or anything, but I just noticed it, so I thought I'd point it out. In this portion of the video, I did have to like spend a lot of time just to mine out instone and stuff. In the next time I try this though, I'm going to mine out all the instone ahead of time, so that way you guys don't have to watch that boring bit of the footage. Although saying that, at least when the footage is sped up to the amount it currently is, it is kind of satisfying to watch like bits of the end islands just get like mined away. After not too long though, I do find the first end city, and I do hurry up and head over there. Look at me currently hurrying with my ×15 sped up footage. As I was getting close to this first end city though, I did decide to up my render distance a bit just to check if there are any other end cities around. And it does take a minute or two for all the surrounding area to fully load in, but would you like to guess what happened? Bruh. Yep. There was a second end city right next to the first one. And as a reminder, that was not scripted or anything, it just sort of happened, and yeah. By this point though, if you played Minecraft at all, I'm sure you know what footage of looting an end city is like, so I'm just going to skip around to a bit of the more exciting bits. Mostly me getting to the loot rooms and stuff, but also stuff like me getting jump scared by shulkers where they shouldn't be. Yeah, he wasn't really supposed to be there, but then he was. And then he teleported away, so I thought he was gone, but then he jump scared me again. Anyways, the first chest does have 3 pairs of pants, which I'm not really sure what I need. And then an efficiency 5, unbreaking 3 iron pickaxe, which was pretty nice. And here I did decide to start collecting the chests, that way I knew how many chests that I've looted to get the amount of loot that I've got. And cutting to the next loot room, I do find an efficiency 4, unbreaking 3, mending fortune 3 iron pickaxe, which is almost the best you can get, or at least it's almost the best you can get for an iron pickaxe, but I'm not all that picky. I am, however, very clumsy, so glad this world is not hardcore, I guess. And I'm also glad that I made a bridge, because once I get out of the spawn room, I can just sort of... After getting back to base, I do gear up with some very basic supplies, some chorus fruit, some ender pearls, and some extra endstone. And I was not expecting to get to test the path marker making method that I just started using. And after some sped up footage, I did get back to my stuff. Unfortunately, I did hit stop recording, and then I forgot to re-hit record, but I did get back there eventually. And that first end city was pretty low in loot rooms, so I'm immediately heading off to the next one. And there is some iron and gold in the diamond helmet, and also a shulker who is sneak attacking me. I'm not entirely sure how he managed to see me from there, but eventually I did get back up to the room and get rid of him. And by get rid of him, I mean he teleported away, because of course he did. And I don't know why I didn't stop to check the enchantments on the diamond helmet, but it did have fire protection 2 on it. And in the second loot room in the MC, there is a whole lot of beetroot seeds, which I don't really need right now. and also a silk touch iron pickaxe, which will be nice to have for later. And then a lot of gold, iron, and diamonds the next one, and also a protection 4 diamond helmet, which will also be nice for later. The next loot room does have some diamond paints with protection 4 and mending, but they also have Curse of Vanishing on them, so not too great. And then in this chest there is a sharpness 4 diamond sword, which I believe I don't have one of that quality just yet. And once I do finish looting that last room, I do head up to the top of the end city to finally make use of my elytra. And again, I'm sure you all know what elytra flying looks like, but it's a cool shot, so leaving it in there for now. Luckily for this episode, I did remember not to do the 45 degree angle flying technique that I mentioned in the last video. And the reason I'm saying luckily is because when the elytra flight is sped up, having someone look up and down really quick just doesn't really do well for people with motion sickness, I guess. After I did use my elytra once though, I did remember how great it was, so I'm now just going to be pillaring up and then flying down from there. And I'm including most of these shots because I think they look pretty cool, but it would look even cooler if someone didn't keep the F3 menu open the whole time. Regardless, the elytra flying is significantly faster than walking around, so I do find another end city pretty quickly. And I'm able to land with all the grace of a fish out of water. The first chest does have 5 diamonds, which will actually be useful now since I can use them to craft axes and other tools for later. And the next chest does have some more diamond stuff, and an efficiency diamond pickaxe, efficiency 4, and then also a mending iron pickaxe, like just mending. I don't really know what's up with that. And the next chest does have some Frostwalker boots, which are pretty interesting. After looting that chest, I'm back up on top of the end city to search for some more, but of course, where you find one end city, you find another. I think it took me a bit to finish loading in the surroundings, but after that, I did just fly straight over to it. And I made it over to the next end city in one piece, but of course, where you find one end city, you find another. And don't mind all the bits of broken glass and stuff there. First chest does have a protection 4 diamond chest plate, which is an upgrade from what I currently had. And the second chest has some other stuff, including a diamond helmet with Unbreaking 3, Respiration 3, Protection 4, and Mending, which is extremely good. If it had Aqua Affinity, it would probably be a perfect helmet. And since I was already there, I was harvesting a little bit more glass, because it is a non-renewable resource and it is in short supply. But after that, I planned just to head straight over to the next end city, and with one of the shulkers giving me a little bit of a boost, I decided no better time than now. And since it was taking a fair bit of time to loot all the end cities, I was basically resorting just to pillaring straight up to the rooms and then looting them that way. This did have the unintended side effect though, of since I wasn't clearing out any of the shulkers, they would always snipe me right as I was about to get the loot. So that's why I'm making walls around most of the chest as I'm looting. Anyways, the first chest did have some Prot 4 iron boots, but they weren't better than the ones that I currently had, so they're just going to the ender chest. And next chest did have a good pickaxe with efficiency 4 and mending on it. And here I'm trying out a new thing. Yeah, it's just an emerald counter. Feel free to let me know if you guys like it. And the next chest does have some feather falling 4 boots, which will be very useful if I want to make the best set of armor available in the future. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to show off the emerald counter thing again. But the next chest does have a lot of gold and diamonds and stuff in it. And in the in-ship, there is a set of iron leggings with protection 4 and mending, and there's also another just silk touch pickaxe, like that's it. And then there's just 6 emeralds there, so I guess it's not as rare as I thought then. And I also grabbed the dragon head again. I'd say for decoration, but I haven't used any of them yet, so. And I did cut out a bit of the footage, but I was backtracking here just to find another end city that was unloaded next to the ones that I already have entered. And the first chest in the end city did have a total of 6 gold and absolutely nothing else. And as a reminder, there is basically nothing I can use gold for. I did have to get back into the end city. I think a shulker had hit me or something. But I did get back in the new-fashioned way as opposed to the old-fashioned. And I guess the shulkers inside could like smell me or something because they were already shooting for me before I even entered the room. The chest though did have a bit more iron, which will probably be useful in just making tools and stuff later. The next chest did have an Unbreaking 3 Efficiency 4 diamond pickaxe, which will be super useful later, but the second chest wasn't quite as impressive. What the second chest was though, was that it did have enough loot to make me get out of shulker box again. And here I'm just pulling up to get a better view to find the other end city that I mentioned earlier. And I'm not really sure if you guys have noticed, but I've been trying to loot the end cities from the top down and save the end ships for last if there are any, because I do believe those have the best loot, and save the best for last or whatever. It was probably a good thing that I did decide to loot the end ship first though, because inside the first 2 chests there was actually a wandering trader in there somehow. I'm not really sure how that works out, but he was in there, definitely. Unfortunately though, he did not have anything of value, besides maybe an oxide daisy or a piece of coral for decoration, but didn't really need either of those at the time. And I also didn't really need anything in the chest, wasn't all that great. I did decide, however, if not just for the sake of progress, that I would buy something from him, so I did go back and buy 1 oxide daisy. And in the next chest, I did find 5 whole diamonds, which was kind of nice. However, I took 1 step too far back and I nearly had a heart attack because I thought I'd fallen. Not really sure why I was placing end stone there though. After taking a quick break just to drop some more items off my inner chest, I did double check the actual chest. Just diamonds, iron, and some iron armor with not great enchantments. And after that, I was done with the end city, so I was heading back to the next end city, and by the next end city, I mean I was heading back to the end gateway because I'd had enough of looting end cities at this point. It's starting to get pretty tedious. Or maybe tedious wasn't quite the right word, but I kind of needed a break at that point, so. And traveling back through the end gateway, I saw a rare sight in the end, which was rain in the void for some reason. And after an extremely tedious 3-second sprint, I am back at the base. From here on, I was just unloading some loot. I don't want to make you guys watch all that, so it's extremely sped up. And after unloading stuff and organizing it into the correct chests, I had about 1 double chest completely full and 2 double chests about half full. So roughly 2 double chests full of loot in total, which is pretty nice, especially including those 10 emeralds from earlier. And after that, I started collecting some leaves for a project you'll see in just a minute. And I'm not entirely sure why, but next I decided to light up the base a bit. Maybe I just got distracted, but I did that. Also, this sped up footage isn't that bad to me, but if it is to you guys, then definitely let me know. After lighting up the base though, I started taking off my armor because I'm going to be undertaking a little bit of a dangerous project right here. The project did require a little bit of digging though, so I ended up taking 2 of these spear pickaxes from the chest just to dig down to the bottom of the island. And after mining for roughly about 6 minutes, I did get to the bottom of the end island. Now face to face with the uncaring void though, I did head back up just to grab some supplies real quick. And that is because, despite digging to the bottom of the end island, I wanted to get to an even lower Y level. So here I'm using the genius 2 trapdoor trick to place blocks at one lower Y level that I learned from this video. But basically the gist of the trick is that you place 2 trapdoors next to each other, one higher, one lower, and then you use one of the trapdoors to put yourself into a crawling state, so that way you can place another block at the bottom of the 2 trapdoors. There is a small problem doing this above the void though, because one misstep and you fall right into the void, which is how I got one more to the death count. Luckily though, I can just hit respawn, and so after getting back to base and respawning a little bit, I'm back doing the same old trapdoor trick. And this was a little bit boring to watch, so I did speed it up a little bit. And I would say it was boring to do, but it was kind of weirdly therapeutic, like one of those weird color sorting games that everyone hates. Anyways, now that I am down at the Y level I wanted, which I think is Y level 0, I'm starting to build out a little platform using leaves. And I'd said earlier that the weird trapdoor trick was kind of fun, even though I didn't think it should be, but this leaf placing thing, it wasn't all that fun. It was just sort of crouching and holding right click, so. If you couldn't tell already though, the thing I was working on is an Enderman XP farm, and I had to double check the guide here, so that's why I'm AFK. Eventually, I did start to build in F5 mode, which I think I'm going to try and do a little bit more often, just because it looks a little bit more entertaining than just placing blocks in first person. Even though I say that though, I was so focused on building that I completely forgot to re-enable F5 mode, so. I guess while we're watching the footage of me build though, I'll go ahead and explain the farm to you. So basically there is this tiny little killing chamber at the start, and then there's a leaf bridge where Endermen can't spawn on. And at the very end there is a small little platform for Endermen to spawn on. I'll get into the rest in a minute, but I just wanted to show you how quick breaking leaves with shears is, which isn't all that weird, but it's just something I haven't seen in a while, so. Getting back to the farm though, so the spawning platform is supposed to be directly ahead of where the player is looking, so that way the player can keep killing Enderman and keep looking at Enderman to aggro more, all in one motion. I say supposed to though, because I did have to take a few creative liberties with the farm. Most notably, the original farm had armor stands in the design, and I couldn't get any stone to make them. I think the original design also included scaffolding, which I couldn't get, and that was supposed to keep the Endermen at bay, and I didn't have that, so. Although I did have to deal with some stray Endermen just teleporting on top of where I was, the farm did kind of work. It was a little bit slow, but it did actually work. At this point, I wasn't really too sure how to fix the spawn rates, so I did decide just to spend a little bit of time expanding the staircase a tiny bit. And by expand it, I did partially mean that I wanted to actually expand it. However, I also was adding in some stairs, so that way I can actually run up the thing instead of just jumping over and over. I know the bit of footage doesn't seem like all that much sped up, but that whole staircase bit actually took me 25 minutes to do. Once I finished up the staircase for now though, I did give the Enderman farm another test drive, and I did not figure out how to fix the teleporting issue, so. Well, I guess if nothing else, it does give me a chance to show off the end bridge again. Back down at the farm, I'm just expanding the bridge a little bit, and the method that I did decide to use to ender-proof, or I guess teleport-proof, the farm was just to use carpets, or double-stack carpets, because apparently those stop Endermen from teleporting. And after that, I did add railings to the whole thing, including some weird diagonal railings that I tried out here. And I also added in some lighting, which I probably didn't need because all of these were stairs, but it just looks cool, so I don't see why I wouldn't add it. And since the spawn rates at the Enderman farm are still a little bit slow, I have two choices. I could either rebuild the farm out in the void, or I could spawn-proof all of the surrounding islands. Yeah, I didn't feel like rebuilding the farm, so. Luckily, that spawn-proofing did seem to be enough because the spawn rates went from about 3 Endermen per minute to about a lot of Endermen per minute. Or maybe not a lot, but just enough to make me feel like I needed to speed up the footage a little bit. But the spawn rates were still a little bit slower than I would have liked, so of course you know that I had to. That was enough spawn proofing for now though, because I do have a steady supply of Endermen, which I can convert into a steady supply of XP. Since I did have the XP problem figured out, I decided to convert 31 iron into an anvil, and I immediately used the anvil to start making a god pickaxe. Or I say god pickaxe, but it is technically iron, but it's good enough for me, so the main problem was just what to name it, but since I am so creative with names, and after enchanting a really good pickaxe, I can use it for its intended use, which is just to farm leaves. Like that's all I was using it for. I didn't really need any leaves at this point, but they are pretty useful to have as a building block. I did have some moss carpets after that though, so I did decide to experiment a little bit with trying to make some like fake grass or fake dirt. Yeah, it's not quite as good as the real thing, but it's something I decided just to keep working on in the background of the video. And here I was setting out on my next little project, which was to try and get some building blocks from one of the end cities. Originally, I had this footage as just like sped up first-person footage. However, as I was reviewing and editing the video, I realized that was kind of stupid. Or maybe not stupid, just not great to watch. So I went ahead and downloaded the replay mod and redid the footage. So yep, I'm just going to swap this footage out with the replay mod one. And after getting back to the main base, I did take a little bit of time just to expand the poor man's dirt just a little bit more. And since I was working on base maintenance or base expansion, I decided to work on another small project. And that project was going to require me digging a hole right next to the boat elevator up to the tower. And the reason that I was placing a leaf at the bottom of the hole was that way I could lean over the edge of the railing on the Enderman farm, and I could line up a little pathway to right next to where the hole would come out of. And I cut out most of the footage of me building it, but I did make a little pathway and a little platform underneath that hole from earlier. And the center of the platform is centered directly beneath that leaf ball from earlier, just to help line things up a little bit better. And then I dug out a little bit more of the space above the platform. Going by the footage here of me digging directly beneath the boat elevator, you might be able to tell what I'm doing is just extending the boat elevator downward, just to help me access the Enderman farm a little bit easier, and also it just kind of looks cool, so that's why I'm doing it. There's a lot of footage of this though, so I'm just going to speed up the last bit a bit more. And with that bit out of the way, the boat elevator is now extended all the way down to the Enderman farm. But of course, since I just finished extending the boat elevator down below the tower, I decided that I would of course have to extend it above as well. So that's what I'm doing now. Or I say that's what I'm doing, but I decided just to cut out most of the footage because you've already seen what it looks like. And since I was done with it, I decided I needed to show off by showing another clip of it, which to be honest, I probably shouldn't have, but it did take me like an hour or two to finish, so I did kind of want to show you something of my efforts. Reviewing the footage, I did time it real quick, and it does still take me like 19 seconds to get up from the bottom of the world to build height. And I headed up to the top of the boat elevator because I wanted to do something. However, this episode is already like 35 minutes long, and that's pretty long. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, and hopefully I'll get the next one out pretty soon.